that, in my opinion, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle crashed Kris Jenner's 70th birthday. Okay, so Kris Jenner, she had this big...
And there was a photo in there of Meghan Markle and with Harry in the background, and somehow it's gone away.
Oh.
So we don't...
Up at the Kris Jenner 70th birthday bash with Harry and got her picture taken. She didn't look good in either shot.
Picture this, the most exclusive party in Beverly Hills. A billionaire's mansion glowing like a fortress. Hollywood royalty celebrating behind locked doors, and then someone walks in who absolutely, positively should not be there. Everyone in that room felt it the second they arrived. The tension, the confusion, the silent question hanging in the air. Who invited them? Here's the thing, nobody did. At least nobody wanted to. But they showed up anyway, fought their way through the gates. And what happened next turned into one of the messiest celebrity disasters Hollywood has seen in years. Because by the time the sun came up the next morning, everything had changed. The photos vanished. The smiles disappeared. And this person, they got erased from the night like they were never even there. So let's talk about what really went down at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party, and why one uninvited guest just completely wrecked their entire Hollywood reputation in a single night. Now, before we get into how this whole thing blew up, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what happened next is insane. We're talking frantic morning panic, vanishing photos, and the kind of ice-cold Hollywood payback that changes everything. If you want to see how one night completely crashed someone's reputation, smash that like button and let's dive in. Let me set the scene for you and tell you exactly what happened at this party, because you need to understand just how big of a deal this night was supposed to be. Picture Beverly Hills glowing like it's made of pure diamonds. Kris Jenner turning 70. The entire Kardashian empire gathering together for what's basically Hollywood's version of a celebration. We're talking about the woman who built a billion-dollar family brand from scratch. And this was her night, her moment, her celebration.
Vlog. I'm officially the last 20-year-old in the family, and also I've been doing this vlog shit for so fucking long.
And listen, this wasn't just some birthday party where you show up with a card and some champagne. Oh no. This was a full-blown operation, a glam-packed, star-studded, billionaire-sprinkled spectacle hosted at Jeff Bezos' house. Yeah, that Jeff Bezos, the guy who could probably buy Beverly Hills if he felt like it. And when that man throws a party, even the chandeliers are probably wearing designer labels. We're talking about a level of luxury most people can't even imagine. Everything was locked down tighter than you can possibly imagine. The guest list, polished to perfection. Every single name vetted and approved. The decor, absolutely flawless. The theme, a James Bond fantasy brought to life, bold, sleek, and dripping in power and style. This wasn't the kind of event where you could just casually stroll in. Security was so tight your phone got checked at the door. Like, physically taken from you. Only the official photographer, handpicked by the hosts, was allowed to capture anything. No random Instagram stories. No sneaky, candid shots. Everything controlled, picture perfect, and completely locked down from the outside world. Now imagine that perfect night. Everything running like absolute clockwork. The drinks flowing, the music perfect. Everyone who's supposed to be there is there, mingling, celebrating, enjoying themselves in this exclusive bubble. The vibe is exactly what it should be. Elegant, powerful, untouchable. And then imagine someone walking right into it like a spark hitting gasoline. Because according to word from inside the event, everyone knew instantly, the second this person stepped through those doors, that this night had just taken a very unexpected turn. This person didn't just enter a party. They walked into a room full of people who weren't expecting them.
Harry leading Meghan into Kris Jenner's 70th 007 theme.
Weren't prepared for them and very possibly weren't wanting them there at all. And in a crowd like this, where everyone knows everyone and the social dynamics are crystal clear, that kind of entrance doesn't go unnoticed. You could feel it in the air. That shift, that immediate change in energy, that moment when the whole vibe transforms and everyone's awareness goes up, heads turning, whispers starting, eyes meeting across the room with that silent question. Wait, are they supposed to be here? Because here's the thing about events like this. When someone shows up who doesn't quite belong, who doesn't fit the carefully chosen guest list, everybody knows it's not subtle. It's not quiet. The hosts know it immediately. The security team knows it. The other guests, the people who've been to 1,000 of these kinds of parties, they definitely know it. And in a room full of people who built entire careers on reading the room, on understanding social dynamics and power plays, that energy doesn't go unnoticed for even a second. The tension was real. The awkwardness was obvious, and everyone was watching to see what would happen next. So, yeah, the tension was there from the start, hanging in the air like a storm cloud over what was supposed to be a perfect celebration. And what happened next? That's where this whole story spirals into complete chaos, the kind of mess that people in Hollywood are still talking about months later. Here's where things get really interesting, because this person didn't just casually show up to Kris Jenner's party like they were on the original guest list. Oh no, that invitation didn't fall from the sky. It didn't slide into their inbox with a cute little RSVP link. They fought for it. Hard. We're talking multiple texts, multiple calls, multiple friendly reminders to people who could make it happen. And everything suggests this person led the charge like they were trying to break into Hollywood's most exclusive circle. Now get this, they even leaned on a mutual friend who actually has a real connection with Kris Jenner to help smooth things over. Because when you want to be in a room this exclusive, when you want to be in the center of that kind of power and influence, you don't just wait for an invite, you make it happen. You pull strings, you call in favors, you do whatever it takes to get your name on that list. But here's the part that makes this whole situation even messier. Insiders say neither Kris Jenner nor Jeff Bezos actually wanted them there. Kris has apparently kept this person at arm's length for years now. Not out of cruelty or
Harry and Meghan keeping up with the Kardashians. It is unreal. And you're just so...
some personal issue, but because Kris is a businesswoman first sharp, calculating and strategic. And people like that don't mix with unpredictability unless they're producing it for a reality show and getting paid for it. She knows drama, she understands drama, but she wants to control when and where it happens. And this wasn't part of the plan. Bezos reportedly wasn't thrilled either, because once you're at that level of wealth and influence, once whispers start going around that someone attracts attention in ways you can't predict or manage, billionaires tend to raise an eyebrow. They start asking questions. They start wondering if having that person at their private event is worth the potential headache. And from what people close to the situation say, the answer was pretty clear. Absolutely not. But somehow, despite all that resistance, despite the hosts not being on board, despite every sign pointing to this being a terrible idea, the invitation came through anyway. Maybe it was the persistence. Maybe it was the connection pulling strings behind the scenes. Maybe somebody just gave in to stop the constant requests. Whatever the reason, they got what they wanted. They got that golden ticket into one of the most exclusive parties of the year. And here's the kicker. They had no idea what was waiting for them on the other side of those doors. They thought getting in was the hard part. They thought once they were inside, everything would be fine. They'd blend in, enjoy the night, maybe get some good photos, and go home feeling like they'd made it into Hollywood's inner circle. But what they didn't realize, what they couldn't have known, was that getting through the door was just the beginning. The real story was about to start, and it wasn't going to go the way they imagined at all. Now, this is where the story flips from awkward to completely wild. Because remember, Kris Jenner's party wasn't your typical Hollywood hangout where everyone's pulling out their phones and posting stories every 5 minutes.
Some seriously bad blood is now brewing between the Kardashians and Meghan Markle and Prince Harry as this
Phones were checked at the door, literally taken away. Only the official photographer, handpicked by the hosts, was allowed to capture anything. Everything was meant to be controlled, picture perfect, and totally airtight when it came to what images got out into the world. But this person, oh man, they treated that photographer like he was shooting their personal Vogue cover. Sources say they posed, smiled, turned tilted, worked every angle like they were on a runway instead of at someone else's birthday celebration. And here's the wild part. They were approving photos as they were being taken, like actively looking at shots, giving feedback, making sure everything looked exactly how they wanted it to look. Remember that word I just said, approved, because that detail becomes absolutely crucial to understanding what happens next. Now listen, this wasn't subtle. This wasn't someone quietly standing in the background hoping to get in a few pictures with the other guests. This was full-on performance mode. While everyone else was mingling, chatting, enjoying the party like normal human beings, this person was locked in on the camera, posing with different people, finding the best lighting, making sure they were front and center in as many shots as possible. It was like watching someone who knew this might be their only chance to be photographed at an event this major. So they were going to make absolutely sure they got the most out of every second of it. And here's the thing that nobody could quite figure out at the time. Nobody stopped them. Not Kris, not Kim, not any of the experienced publicists floating around who've seen every kind of Hollywood behavior you can imagine. Maybe they thought it was harmless. Maybe they figured, okay, let them have their moment. It's just a few pictures. What's the big deal? Maybe everyone was just too focused on enjoying the night to realize this was going to become a problem.
Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party, here we come.
Kim K in her Bond girl best, heading into her mom.
Because honestly, who expects someone to spend an entire evening working the official photographer and then turn around and have second thoughts about it later? But that's exactly what makes this whole situation so strange. This wasn't a case of someone getting caught off guard by a candid shot. This wasn't outside photographers sneaking photos from beyond the venue. This was willing, enthusiastic, actively managed participation in the photography process. They wanted these pictures. They made sure these pictures happened. They approved these pictures in real time. So when everything went sideways the next morning, when the panic set in and the requests started flying, people were left asking the same question. If you spend all night making sure you looked perfect in every shot, why on earth would you suddenly want them all gone? That question is what sets up everything that comes next. Because what started as an enthusiastic photo session at a party was about to turn into a complete mess that nobody saw coming. So the party ends, everyone goes home, the night was what it was. And then the next morning hits, and suddenly everything changes. Because here's what nobody at that party was thinking about while they were celebrating: the timing. Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party happened on the eve of Remembrance Day, one of the most serious, solemn occasions in the UK. A day meant for honoring service members, for reflection, for respect. It's not a day you want to be caught looking like you were partying it up just hours before. Now imagine waking up the next morning and realizing that. Imagine seeing those photos from the night before, the smiling, the posing, the living your best life at a Bond-themed bash, and suddenly understanding how that's going to look. Because the optics, absolutely terrible. Here you've got someone with connections to that world.
Kim Kardashian, Kris Jenner, they posted these pictures, and within hours, they had pulled down and deleted.
Someone who's supposed to understand the weight of days like Remembrance Day, and they're all over photos from an extravagant celebration that happened right before it. That's the kind of thing that doesn't just look bad. That's the kind of thing that can turn into a serious reputation problem. Sources say the panic spread fast, like really fast. The realization hit, and suddenly those photos that seemed perfectly fine the night before became a massive issue. Phone calls started happening. Damage control mode kicked in immediately. And the tone of the conversation shifted from, "Thanks for the great photos," to, "We need those taken down, all of them right now." The urgency wasn't subtle. This wasn't a casual request. This was frantic, desperate scrambling to make those images disappear before they spread too far. And here's the twist that still has people scratching their heads. Why approve the photos all night long, spend hours making sure every shot looked perfect, only to panic and demand they all get erased at sunrise? That's the part nobody can quite make sense of. If you knew the timing was going to be a problem, why pose for photos at all? Why not just keep a low profile, enjoy the party quietly, and avoid the cameras altogether? But no, they went all in on the photo session, made sure they looked amazing in every single shot, and then woke up and realized they'd messed up big time. The request was made, take down the photos, all of them, every single one, and the Kardashians, they got that message loud and clear. But here's the thing about asking someone to erase you from their event after you spent the whole night making sure you were the center of attention in those photos. It doesn't exactly land well, especially when it's not your party, not your event, and definitely not your call to make about what gets posted and what doesn't. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about the photos themselves. It was about the panic, the lack of planning ahead. The scramble to undo something that didn't need to happen in the first place. And when you put people in that position, when you make your problem their problem, especially people as powerful and image conscious as the Kardashians, you're not just asking for a favor, you're creating a situation. And that situation was about to get a whole lot more complicated. And now here's where things get ice cold. Because when the Kardashians got that request to take down the photos, they didn't argue, they didn't push back, they didn't make a scene or send out statements. They simply complied. But trust me, they were absolutely furious. Behind the scenes, sources say Kris Jenner felt completely blindsided and disrespected. This was her night, her milestone, her celebration. And suddenly someone was treating it like a PR accident they needed to cover up and erase from existence. You have to understand something about Kris Jenner. This woman built an empire on strategy and timing. She's negotiated billion-dollar deals from her kitchen counter. She knows influence like most people know their morning coffee order. Sharp, calculated, and always 3 steps ahead. So when someone comes in unprepared, overly enthusiastic about photos 1 minute and panicking the next, then tries to rewrite the narrative the morning after, that crosses a line. Not because Kris holds on to things for fun, but because she protects her brand like it's made of gold and unpredictability in her world. That's not just annoying. That's a problem she can't work with. So the Kardashians did what they do best. They made their move quietly, methodically, and with surgical precision. At first, the photos stayed up. This person appeared in some of the initial photo dumps that went out. Kim even posted a picture with them. Everything looked normal, like the party was just another successful Hollywood night.
Do you see where they are?
On her boobs.
And he looks wasted, wasted. And Meghan, that's your...
But then something shifted. The next time Kris posted highlights from the event, they were gone. The next time Kim shared throwback moments, gone. The next batch of photos from anyone in the family, completely wiped, scrubbed, removed like they were never there at all. And here's what makes the Kardashian approach so effective. It wasn't loud. There were no announcements, no explanations, no public drama or statements to the press, just silence. And in Hollywood, silence is one of the most powerful tools you can use. Because when you erase someone without a word, when you remove them from the narrative without giving them a chance to explain or defend themselves, you're sending a message that everyone in the industry understands perfectly. You're saying this person isn't worth the conflict. They're not worth the conversation. They're just gone. People inside the industry caught on immediately. The whispers started spreading through Hollywood's inner circles faster than you'd believe. And the vibe was crystal clear. You don't walk into Kris Jenner's house, 'cause a mess, and walk away untouched. You don't make her look sloppy at her own event and expect everything to be fine. This wasn't just about deleted pictures. This wasn't even about the panic or the timing or Remembrance Day. This was about control. Kris Jenner runs her world with precision, with intention, with absolute mastery over every detail. And when someone tried to override that machine, even unintentionally, it triggered a response that was silent but incredibly powerful. So here's what actually happened. This person was erased from the narrative. Not publicly shamed, not called out, not confronted in any visible way, just removed. And that's one of the most effective Kardashian.
Here's what I think. I think Meghan went to Kris Jenner and said, would you get me in to a major fashion show in Paris?
Moves you'll see. Because it's not about getting even or being petty. It's about sending a message to everyone watching. It's about showing the entire industry what happens when you disrespect the person in charge, when you turn someone else's celebration into your own crisis, when you forget that some rooms you enter aren't yours to control. The message was received, and Hollywood was paying very close attention. By the time the photos vanished from Kardashian feeds, the whispers had already begun making their way through Hollywood's inner circles. And let me tell you, when Hollywood starts whispering, someone's reputation is in serious trouble. Sources say the industry reaction was immediate and icy. Publications that usually keep things polite and careful suddenly weren't softening anything. Outlets were quoting insiders calling the appearance tacky. Others said it showed a complete disconnect from what actually matters. And that's when it clicked for everyone watching. This wasn't just a social misstep. This was someone running into a wall they didn't see coming. Because ordinary celebrities watched the situation unfold and thought, oh no, not this again. Hollywood has its own rules, unwritten, quiet, and absolutely ruthless. And one of those rules is simple. When the Kardashians distance themselves, everybody else steps back too. And so they did. Executives, publicists, producers, influencers, people who were friendly before suddenly started creating space. Not in a loud, dramatic way, just quietly, subtly. The kind of distance you only notice when you realize nobody's calling anymore. People suddenly started asking questions. Why were they even at the party in the first place? How did they manage to get in when the hosts clearly didn't want them there? And why does every event they attend seem to...
Because the reality is that in Hollywood, they're not royalty anymore. They're on the D list. So they may get the invite, but they're not on...
Turn into a storyline about them, even when it wasn't supposed to be. As one insider put it, every time they show up somewhere, it becomes about them. And in an industry where reading the room is everything, where knowing when to blend in and when to stand out is an actual survival skill, that's a real issue. That's when the room finally turned cold. Here's the thing about Hollywood. It's not just about talent or connections or even money. It's about understanding the ecosystem, knowing which rooms you belong in and which ones you don't, knowing when to push and when to pull back, knowing how to navigate power without making enemies out of the people who control the gates. And when you don't have that instinct, when you force your way into spaces that aren't ready for you and then create chaos once you're inside, the industry notices. And it remembers. And listen, this wasn't about one person being mean or petty or holding something over someone's head. This was the entire ecosystem reacting to behavior that broke the unspoken code. Because in Hollywood, your reputation isn't just what you do, it's how you make other people feel when you're in the room. It's whether you respect the dynamics, whether you understand boundaries, whether you can be trusted not to turn someone else's moment into your own drama. And when you fail that test, especially in front of people as influential as Kris Jenner and her family, the consequences aren't loud or public. They're quiet, they're cold, and they're everywhere. So what happened wasn't some organized effort or grand conspiracy. It was just Hollywood doing what Hollywood does, adjusting, recalibrating, deciding who's in and who's out based on behavior, not headlines. And once that decision gets made, once the whispers turn into a consensus, getting back in becomes nearly impossible because the industry doesn't forgive easily. It doesn't forget. And it definitely doesn't open doors for people who've already proven they can't handle being inside. Now let's talk about what really drives Hollywood. The part that doesn't get discussed in interviews or written about in magazines, but everyone in the industry understands Hollywood runs on rules that aren't printed anywhere. You don't crash someone's milestone event. You don't upstage the host at their own celebration. You don't manipulate the optics to serve your own interests. You don't make the night about yourself when you're supposed to be honoring someone else. And above all, you do not disrespect Kris Jenner. This woman built an empire on strategy and timing. She's negotiated billion-dollar deals from her kitchen counter.
Weren't following along, these mysterious photos deleted off of Kim Kardashian and Kris Jenner's Instagram carousel,
while managing 6 kids and turning a family name into a global brand. She knows influence like she knows her own reflection. Sharp, flawless, and built for winning every single time. So when someone came in unprepared, overly enthusiastic about being photographed, shaky on basic social etiquette, and then tried to rewrite the entire narrative the next morning, that crossed a line, the kind of line you don't get to step back from. Kris protects her brand like it's the most valuable thing in the world. And in her world, it absolutely is. Her brand is her family, her legacy, her power. Word from the inner circle is that the entire sequence of behavior, the excessive posing, the morning panic, the frantic photo deletion requests, all of it was seen as wildly unpredictable. And unpredictability in Hollywood is something nobody wants to deal with. It tells everyone you can't be trusted to handle yourself in high-stakes situations. Kris doesn't deal with situations like that. She deals with people who understand the game inside and out, with individuals who know how to move through her world without causing unnecessary waves. And in that moment, this person became someone who couldn't read the room, couldn't control their own narrative, and couldn't understand that their actions were going to have consequences far beyond a few deleted photos. That's why this was the breaking point. Not because of who they are, but purely because of how they handled this specific night. It was about demonstrating to everyone in Hollywood that certain behaviors won't be tolerated, that forcing your way into exclusive spaces and then creating chaos once you're inside doesn't get rewarded, that trying to control someone else's narrative at their own event will get you removed, quietly, systematically, and completely. The message wasn't just for this one person, it was for everyone watching.
That just seemed like a PR stunt. Harry and Meghan entered where the paparazzi were taking photos.
Because Hollywood is always watching. Every move you make, every room you enter, every relationship you build or hurt, it all gets filed away. It all becomes part of your permanent record in an industry that never forgets. And when someone as powerful as Kris Jenner decides you're not worth the headache, when she makes it clear through silence and systematic removal that you don't meet the standard, everyone else takes note. It becomes a cautionary tale whispered about at other parties, other events, other exclusive gatherings. A reminder that the rules exist for a reason, and breaking them has real consequences. Consequences that don't come with warnings, explanations, or second chances. The industry understood the lesson immediately. Don't overestimate your importance in rooms where you're not actually that important. Don't assume your presence is wanted just because you got through the door. Don't treat other people's milestone celebrations like your personal photo opportunity. And don't panic and try to erase your mistakes the next morning, expecting everyone else to go along with it. Because the people at the top, the ones who control access and opportunity, they remember everything. Every slight, every misstep, every moment of poor judgment. And they don't have to say a word to make their feelings known. The silence says it all. The removal says it all. And everyone who matters understands exactly what's being communicated. So here's what this whole situation really comes down to. It's about understanding that Hollywood operates on respect, awareness, and the ability to read the room at all times. It's about knowing that some circles you don't force your way into, no matter how badly you want to be there. And some people you don't cross even accidentally, because the consequences will follow you for years. When you mess up in front of the wrong people, when you show poor judgment at the wrong event, the fallout isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, it's permanent, and it shapes every opportunity that comes after doors that might have opened stay closed. Invitations never arrive. Conversations simply don't happen. And you might never know exactly why you're just going to feel the cold. And understand eventually that you brought it on yourself. That's the real lesson here. You learn it by watching what happens when someone forgets the rules, when someone thinks they're outside the social structure, when someone believes that wanting something badly enough means they deserve it. And this time, everyone was watching. Everyone saw what happened, and everyone understood exactly what it meant. The lesson is out there now, permanent, clear, and more valuable than any photo from that party could ever have been. So picture this. The party lights are gone, the music has faded, the photos have been deleted, and Kris Jenner has moved on without a single public word. Hollywood watches this like a chess match. Because in this world, silence isn't empty. Silence is a message. And this person felt it. Once, they believed fame was a ladder they could climb with charm, confidence, and perfect poses. They thought getting through the door was the hard part. They thought once they were inside those exclusive rooms, everything would fall into place. But on that night, inside Bezos' mansion at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday celebration, the ladder disappeared. Because Hollywood doesn't let you climb if it decides you're not right for the top. The whispers grew louder. The invitations grew fewer.
Finally, the Kardashians allowed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle into the fold via Kris Jenner.
The spotlight dimmed, not all at once, but gradually, like a slow fade that you don't notice until you're standing in the dark, wondering where everyone went. And once Hollywood's inner circle makes that call, once the Kardashians send their message through silence and systematic removal, once Kris Jenner shows you don't meet the standard, getting back in isn't about effort or apologies or time. It's about whether anyone believes you're worth the chance of letting back in. And right now, that answer seems pretty clear. Here's what nobody talks about openly, what doesn't make it into the glossy magazine stories about Hollywood's success. It wasn't the photos that did it. It wasn't the party. It wasn't even the panic the next morning when reality hit hard. It was this. This person walked into a world they thought wanted them and discovered a world that had already closed its doors. They fought to get into a room that didn't want them there, posed for photos at an event where they weren't truly welcome, and then tried to erase it all when the consequences became real. And that sequence of decisions became the moment everything shifted. After a night like this, after a silent rejection by the most powerful family in entertainment, after watching the entire industry take a collective step back and go cold, what happens the next time this person steps into a room full of people who have already decided they're not one of them? What happens when you walk into events knowing everyone's heard the story, knowing everyone saw what happened, knowing everyone understands exactly why you're not in the Kardashian photos anymore? Because Hollywood remembers. Kris Jenner remembers. And every person who watched this unfold, every executive who heard the whispers, every publicist who noticed the pattern, they remember too.
Harry and Meghan, absolutely everywhere. They get the big invite to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday. Look at that.
And when your defining moment becomes a cautionary tale about what not to do, when your big night becomes the example other people use to teach the lesson about respecting boundaries and reading the room, coming back from that isn't impossible, but it's close. The next chapter hasn't been written yet. The doors might open a crack if enough time passes and enough lessons get learned. But after this night, every room this person enters comes with the weight of this one. Every introduction carries the memory. Every conversation happens with people who already know the story. And the door, it's not locked forever, but it isn't open either. Not anymore. Not after this. So the question isn't whether someone can recover from a situation this public, this messy, this perfectly designed to show exactly what happens when you break Hollywood's unwritten rules. The question is whether the industry will even let them try, whether Kris Jenner will ever forget, whether the Kardashians will ever reconsider, whether the whispers will ever stop long enough for a fresh start to actually mean something. It's about walking through life knowing that one night, one series of decisions, one failure to understand the room you were in changed everything. And it's about learning too late that in Hollywood, some mistakes don't come with second chances. Some doors once closed stay that way, and some lessons cost more than you ever imagined when you were fighting so hard just to get inside. The story ends here, but the consequences don't. They're still playing out, still shaping opportunities, still influencing who gets invited and who gets forgotten. And somewhere, this person is living with that reality, understanding now what they didn't understand then. That getting into the room was never the achievement belonging there was. And after that night at Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party, the difference between the two became painfully, permanently clear. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more Hollywood stories like this, subscribe and hit the bell. See you next time.